of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Penisini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a live edition of the Tip Sheet podcast on Tuesday evening. It is Teamless Tuesday, of course, and I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, joining me as a surprise guest, actually. I was prepared to go solo today. I thought there'll be a bit of a scheduling conflict tonight, but my main man, the big offsider, the big man himself, Craig, aka 60s, is on board. I was ready to be the lone sheriff, Craig, be the lone gunslinger out in the wild, wild west as we take on the Cowboys this week. But glad to have you on board, mate. It is greatly appreciated, of course, when you make time when it gets real busy like it does sometimes, to keep me from flying on my lonesome. Massive thank you and hello to everyone in chat. We've already had plenty of active chatters talking about Teamless Tuesday, injuries and the availability of certain players. There was a lot of question marks about the whereabouts of Jonah Pezzett this week. There was a lot of big conspiracy theories, Craig, immediately with Pezzett's absence from the injury report or the team lists. I can confirm it's a one-game suspension from hip drop tackle in the New South Wales Cup, so there is nothing crazy happening there. It is the Occam's razor very much in action. But before we do go any further, mate, and start talking more Parramatta Eels, of which there is plenty to talk about, because we've got Cowboys in our sights on the field and we've got a Cowboy in our sights off the field. Eels looking to pick up a mid-season acquisition from the Cowboys potentially. But before we do go any further, mate, quick check-in on how you're doing. It's been a hectic weekend. Glory in the Tarsha Gale, tough result in the NRL, and a lot happening for the Parramatta Eels as always.
Yes, been an interesting day, John. I'll leave it at that. And yeah, again, thank you to everyone that's there in chat, and thank you to the people who watched a video that I put out yesterday. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get into our Eels news, because I'm pretty keen on your comments on the topic as well, John. I know we've spoken a little bit yesterday and today on the subject, but we will get to that. But before we do, of course, thank you to our sponsors, star partners, Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club, where every home match is truly the home of the Eels, because we're there. With our special guest man. Have we had some great guests lately?
Lineup's been banger after banger in the last few home games, hasn't it, Greg?
Yeah. Steve Ella, David Lydiard, Brett Kenny, Tim Manor, Daniel Mortimer, Peter Wynn. I keep thinking I've left someone out. I don't think I have, but it's just been...
It's the special guest too. It's you get Tim Manor and Daniel Mortimer gets thrown in as an awesome bonus. You get Steve Ella and Dave Lydiard's there as well. So, yeah, the value is, I mean, like there's any cost of admission to watch us at Stirlo's, but the value's never been greater in the pregame shows.
And what's been real fun with that, John, is that the people that line up to meet the legends after we've had a bit of a chat with them, and it was really funny last week as I was starting off with Peter Wynn. And because I start off, I get on the microphone normally about half an hour before that we are there with the legends, just to thank everyone for being there, and just also to remind them that we're only going to talk to the legends for a brief period. And it's appreciated if people can, not everyone's there to see us or to see the legend, but just to keep the noise in the room down, because that room gets really, really noisy. With people on match days. And anyway, we did have a few people calling out to others in the room just to pipe down while Peter was talking on Saturday. So that was really good. Some really keen people in there. But yeah, the queues to get the photos and autographs and that sort of thing has been brilliant.
That is honestly my favourite part of it, is watching the fan interaction with the legends and just how valued these men are for their contributions on and off the field to the blue and gold, and seeing how much the fans love them. It's it is so cool.
And it's not just the premiership winners, because again we had Tim Manor and Daniel Mortimer, and the fans are queuing up to get their photos and autographs with those two fine gents. And of course they were members of a grand final team, but unfortunately we had happen what we did against the Storm in 2009 without revisiting that. They probably should have been premiers, and that debate will probably go on and on for forever. But we've had other great players from different eras as well, like Michael Buettner, for example. We're looking forward to maybe speaking with him again this year. Anyway, I digress. So thank you to Parramatta Leagues Club for their continued support, and of course, John, no matter what what platform people are watching or listening to this on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. So without rambling on anymore, if you could hit the stinger.
News team, assemble!
And John, it's funny, I was just listening to our stinger there, and I happened to watch Anchorman for the umpteenth time again the other day, and it still cracks me up as much as when I watched it the first time. Just the absurdity, especially the news war that they go.
Yes.
I killed a man.
With a trident. Yeah.
You were using a trident.
And watching the Hispanic News Network turning up, the ABC, and it's like a who's who of like comedy actors all getting their little bit parts in the movie was a classic. Yeah, Anchorman 1 was like I said, absurdist humor. Like it wasn't Monty Python-esque, but it kind of had that same energy in a more modern era. And very, very funny stuff. So yes, it's always good to play the stinger and sort of harken back to those days. But yeah, look, Craig, obviously there's not a lot of good news to the Parramatta Eels right now, but today breaking news was particularly bad. Another lost eel today. Yeah,
and again, it gets. I think it emphasises the need to recognise the players of that 80s era, because we've now lost a player who was a member of the 82 and 83 grand final teams in Chris Phelin, eel number 405. And Chris was really a very, very mobile. My memories of Chris was that he could play both front row and second row, but he was really nicknamed Howyer for How You Feeling. And he was, I think he only played just over 50 first grade games across 3 seasons with Parramatta before he returned to Queensland. And he did come to Parramatta sort of later in his career, because he'd had quite a successful career playing in Queensland before he joined Parramatta. I think he was about 26 or 27 when he came to Parramatta. And he went back to Queensland and had continued success back in Queensland when he returned there, played Origin football as well. But these players they're now getting to that age where we're starting to lose them. And we were fortunate that we were able to bring together the 86 team, with the exception of Jeff Bugden, who made the decision not to be part of the celebration. So it's not that Jeff's no longer with us, but when it comes to honours and recognition, and we keep pushing for that recognition of a player from that era being made an immortal, a rugby league immortal, and being able to honour them while they're still with us. And it might sound like a morbid thing to say, but the unfortunate passing of Chris Phelin just does remind us that they are ageing. And when I say they're ageing, some of them are like my age. So I'm feeling it a little bit there as well. But look, it is sad to see Chris pass, and I'm glad that the club was able to honour them as they did with Ryley today. I know there's going to be a lot of his teammates who are very sad, and I think Peter Wynn was maybe the first to put out some notifications about the passing of Chris. So we just extend our sympathies and our wishes to Chris's family and all his loved ones, or his teammates, everyone who's been touched by his life. So, a bit of a sad way to start the podcast, but again, it is that reminder of let's honour these players as much as we can while we can. Yeah. John, just moving on, the Eels have, and we'll go straight to a bit of positive news. The Eels unveiled their multicultural jersey, which has a real Pacifica feel about it, a wave design that goes right through the jersey, some international flags as part of on the sleeve that's part of the design. They had a celebration there yesterday afternoon. I think it was running from about 4:30 to 6:30, something like that, and it was an entire club thing. I'm sure they'll be putting out some, if they haven't already, they'll be putting out some media on that. But
nothing on the main page. It looks like they've got an article about the jersey, obviously, but no footage of the celebrations or anything. But I'm sure they'll be on the socials within the week. But yeah,
the boys trained in the afternoon yesterday, and when I say the boys, I'm in the NRL team. But as I said, it was a total club thing. There was just as I was leaving the centre, there was a number of NRLW players that had turned up. People from the pathways were starting to take their seats in the stand. The stand, all the railings and the sides of the stand were covered in a host of flags of all the nations that the Eels players represent. So I'm looking forward to seeing the media that comes out from that. It wasn't something that I felt you could hang around and watch because it was it was a club thing. So, but as I said, looking forward to the media that comes out with it. John, I'm now going to jump into the schooner of reality because I actually want to talk about the video that I put out, and I want to thank everyone that watched it because it was 12 minutes long, and it's had, I think, around about 30,000 views across our various social media platforms, X, Facebook, Instagram. So a lot of people have watched it. A lot of people have commented or liked. Whether people agreed with it or not, I just appreciate the fact that people sat and watched a video for 12 minutes about what's going on. But in essence, and I'm going to try to put something in written form for the website, but it's a lot to write, and it was quite easy to get, much easier to get it out in a video format.
Quickly vocalize it, yeah.
Yeah, but even so, there's a lot that I didn't say because I was pretty much going straight off the top of the head. It was unscripted what I said, and there were a few things that I probably could have made a little bit clearer rather than this, I guess, a stream of consciousness speaking. But John, what I was getting to was that the Eels are they're in a predicament at the moment because of injury, and as a consequence of that, we're getting games where, because of inexperience, but also because of a bit of frustration and the team and just lack of confidence, we're getting a lot of mistakes, which then leads to us being in defence a lot, which if you're defending, that opens up to the referees having quite a say there with penalties and set restarts and things like that. And you and I have spoken about this a number of times, that at full strength, we're a competitive team, and maybe a team that can play finals football. But if you're talking about having ambitions to win a premiership, things have to change. And unfortunately, we've been down in the bottom half of the table now since the 22 season. And even if you're in finals football, if you're not winning the title, you're an also-ran. And unfortunately, we're sitting in the part of the table where teams typically have to pay above market price to convince players to come to them. It's just a fact now. If you're a Penrith Panthers or a Roosters, or in most seasons the Melbourne Storm, you don't have to pay top dollar to lure someone that you might have interest in. Actually, Melbourne does pretty good because they've got so many elite players, core elite players that are there anyway. But if you want to attract an elite player who's in demand, and let's specify this, an elite player in demand, and you're down the bottom of the table, you're going to have to pay above market price. And we know the Eels have not wanted to do that because it can lead to an imbalanced roster, and they don't get into bidding wars for players. So you did, as a consequence, you saw us miss out on, for example, Keon Koloamatangi. Now, we didn't have a problem with the Eels not getting into a bidding war because the Dragons ended up offering $1.3 million over 4 years.
5 years.
5 years, sorry. Yep, 5 years. And both South and the Eels, his incumbent club and Parramatta, we're not going to match that. So he can spin it whatever way he wants. This was purely a financial decision to go to the Dragons, and who wouldn't? Now, bear in mind, the Dragons are the basket case that they are. And then they managed to sign Scott Drinkwater, and again, for good coin. So they're the epitome of a club that's sitting down near the bottom, and they make the decision, look, the only way we're going to possibly get ourselves out of this, and as quickly as we possibly can, is going into the marketplace and buying elite players. And my take is basically the Eels have to accept where we sit. And if we have aspirations to be a dominant team, to be a team that's going to challenge for the title, we can either follow the current path as we are and maybe get to that destination sometime between 5 and 10 years, maybe, when some of the young talent coming through, if they mature as we think they should, maybe we might get there in that period of time. But it's unrealistic to think without the injection of elite players that that's going to change. Now, John, I wanted to throw it to you because in our discussions, you wanted to talk about the pros of the Parramatta methodology up to now, but then also, I guess, find a way that you also are in the same mind as what I am.
Yeah, I mean, everyone that reads my written content on TCT and follows us on the podcast knows that I am pretty safely to say an above average, in terms of standard deviation, patient fan. Like I'm okay for the slow burn, the build, and even now, like I'm not at the breaking point that other fans are, although I can understand why fans are upset the way they are. It's not a case of I'm right, they're wrong. This is a case of just slightly different perspectives. But yeah, look, I've always hearkened, and again, this is one area I have been critical of, is that the Eels are incredibly risk adverse. Post-salary cap scandal era, post-2016, 2017, when there was a big fallout, Eels then bottomed out in 2018, and then we had a change of approach, change of methodology, where we became incredibly risk adverse. We wanted to do things the right way, almost like Boy Scouts, Greg. Like if there is a team that is playing by the rules of the salary cap, it would be the Parramatta Eels right now. And it would have been for nearly 10 years now. And that is a competitive disadvantage because we've seen, even with our own Parramatta Eels, that teams are desperate consistently in the history of sport to push the envelope, to step across lines in the pursuit of winning and chasing glory. But to get where we're going with this one here is that the Eels play an incredibly risk-adverse approach in recruitment. They have a market value. Well, this is me from the outside looking in. They have a very reasonable evaluation assessment of what a player is worth, and they will work within the parameters of that. And people know I love to mix up my sporting metaphors here, but it's kind of akin to playing poker, and you've got a very safe range of hands that you're willing to play. But the Eels also don't do the other half of that evaluation where they want to take the risk on the right pots, where the pot odds say that you should be putting in the money, even if it does, it has inherent risk. The Eels always play the safe hands. They'll be risk adverse, play the safe hands. They don't take the risks. And that is fine in the long run. And when I mean the long run, I mean the long run, capital L, multiple O's, long run. Because when you get 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 pieces of data doing that, eventually you're going to come out ahead. That's just what playing the odds does. But in rugby league, in a market that's constructed the way in which league is, and where you've got 27 rounds, 24 of which you play in the regular season, and there's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 teams as we continue to scale up, you've got to take a risk at some point. And the Eels have not pulled the trigger on the big risk, the big signing at any point post, Kieran Foran? Who was the last, the big time signing we made?
The only one that would come in would be our recently departed winger.
And even then, Zach Lomax was, if anything, Zach Lomax fully typified that methodology of playing the safe value hand, because he came to the Eels. I know there's some range of value there between 6 to 700, 6 to 750, depending on what media outlet was talking. But that's not the high risk signing. That's not the Lomax was a great signing, and we should not shy away from Lomax type signings just because Lomax is Zach Lomax. But yeah, what we're talking about in the past would have been during Brad Alpha's reign, where there was a chance to get Tony Staggs or Herbie Farnworth, and the Eels were right there at the end and didn't pull the trigger at the final line. At some point, and I get playing the correct numbers and playing safe and doing good cap management, but at some point, if you want to hang with the big dogs, you got to take the shot. And again, I get frustrated that we're not highly critical of the Eels administration, but that is something which we've been pretty consistent on, is that they've done a very solid job managing the lower and middle tier of the roster. They've consistently found great value there. They've found diamonds in the rough. They've found great value to bolster the squad. But what they have really struggled to do, and what they've balked at, frustratingly, is not going all in on someone. And I don't just mean throwing money willy-nilly. Someone's on the market and they're the best guy on the market. If the Dylan Brown equivalent was on the market right now, I wouldn't want the Parramatta Eels to go out and throw $1.4 million at the Dylan Brown equivalent right now. But if Herbie Farnworth is there, and he sort of is for 2028, that's the sort of player that they have to give serious consideration to literally backing the bank truck up to, because you have to spend your cap. You're obligated, not entitled, to spend 95% minimum spend of your cap. You can roll over 5% of your cap. It's not the NFL where there is a rolling 4-year window of which you need to spend the totality of that 95% of the cap, which maybe was something the NRL could explore. But yeah, at some point, playing safe is good. Playing safe it's smart, but the Eels have to take a punt. And like you said, Craig, it means that they have to acknowledge that given where we're at, this isn't 2022. We aren't coming off the grand final. You're going to have to pay the tax. You're going to have to pay overs. And if they continue their approach as they are, we're going to tread water. And you're hoping that you can find 2, 3, 4 stars in the juniors that can carry you all the way. And they might do that. But as we've always said, the best approach, even as a development club, is combined arms. You develop internally, you look at where your roster balances are, your strengths and weaknesses, and then you go out to the market to find the pieces that can augment what you have and what you're projecting to have internally. And right now the Eels need another 2, maybe 3 pieces externally to go out there. And I saw Chris was in chat before saying, we've lost, he listed the players that lost, like Lomax, Reagan Campbell-Gillard, and a couple others, saying, where's the cap space gone? Why aren't we using it? I don't think it's a case of cap space, Chris. I think it's just purely recruitment philosophy. I'm not to say that we've got endless amounts of cap space. I'm not saying we can just spend whatever we want. But I think that the issue is that the Eels have their value, and they stick very strongly to that value. They don't want to blow out their budget. They don't want to take that risk and put themselves beyond the scope of what they've evaluated a player for, rightly or wrongly. And right now it's feeling wrongly for a lot of fans. But yeah, that's the problem, is that they are risk adverse, Craig. And while that will play out if given 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 pieces of data, they will come out ahead eventually. The way the NRL modelling works is that you've got so many other teams taking the risks and looking for, not shortcuts, but by taking risks, that they can come out ahead in the short term and really skew your ability to compete.
Yeah, John, and we should be at pains to point out as well that the Eels aren't plucking a figure out of the air when they make an assessment about what a player is worth, because the NRL provides all clubs with data on the earnings of players in different positions, and they'll give, like, I think the top earners and like a mean or median payment. I can't remember whether it's mean or median. It might be median rather than mean, like the middle, the amount that sits in the middle of all the players, because that probably indicates what the sort of benchmark is for players rather than the average. So they do a lot of research, they do a lot of due diligence with that, and they plan out what the roster is going to look like down the track with the juniors coming through, and that all has to do with the length of the contract that they're offering, those sorts of things. So it's quite meticulous. It's not just plucking a random number out of the air and going, look, we're not going to go above this.
And it's not to say that the Eels should completely cast away their approach of being frugal and doing the correct process, but they have to take a chance at some point. You can't just crunch numbers and take the safe option. You need to do that. You need to develop your young players, and you need to go out and say, well, Herbie Farnworth at $1 million, it's expensive. It's expensive. I don't like it, but is that going to be the tipping point for getting this team over that hump and putting them downhill instead of uphill? Yeah,
and look, I think it's a really important point to talk about the fact that process is a good process to follow for virtually all of the roster. What we're saying is, when you're talking about getting some elite players, and every club that has aspirations of winning the title is going to have players who are in the elite category, the ones that are up around that $1 million or more, because they're the ones that not only are the difference makers in the team, they're the ones that will help younger players develop, and by virtue of that, basically showing them the way that it's done as an elite player. And everything from preparation through to that. But John, just what I wanted to get out as well is an example of an elite player and what it means in recruitment then as well, like to attract other players. If we go to our own Blaze Talangi, when he left the Eels, he was looking at, there were two halves at Parramatta who looked ostensibly to be on long-term deals in Moses and Dylan Brown. As it turned out, Dylan Brown had those options. Dylan had never expressed any interest in going elsewhere, and it was only that insane offer from the Knights that changed the landscape. That halves pairing that we had virtually was saying to Ethan Sanders and Blaze Talangi, if you've got aspirations to play in the halves, you may have to bide your time for a while behind us. And yes, Blaze was able to play a bit of centre, a bit of wing and fill in it in the halves as needed. But he looked at the Panthers, and not only was there an opportunity there because of the departure of Luai, the big attraction, and he spoke about this, was being able to play alongside Nathan Cleary and learn from him. And when you're talking about having elite players in a club and the role that they can play, that ability to attract players who want to play alongside them goes a long way as well. We need the elite players, not just to turn around on-field performances. We need them there to help to make the club more attractive, to make us a destination club, and also to help some of that outstanding young talent that's coming through to develop into the elite players of the future. And it may well be that down 5, 6, 7 years down the track, we have our own developed elite players from those pathways, but they're maybe not going to reach their potential if they're coming into a struggling team or a team that at best is competitive. Their best opportunity to reach their potential is to come in and have elite players around them. And this is no disrespect on the players that are there at Parramatta. We have, as we keep saying, a very competitive team, but we want to be above being competitive. And I should say a very competitive team when we're at full strength. And we've got players who have been, like we've spoken about, these high return value players that we've managed to get from other clubs that weren't wanted by other clubs. Look at Iongi. He could be an elite player of the future. Ryley Smith, Joash Papali, Jordan Samrani, and then the Pathways boys that are coming through.
Yeah, Bamblet, Petrus, Coino. Like the club is, and that's the thing, is that when you look at the totality of things, there's a lot of good work done. But at the end of the day, if you're not landing the key pillars, the elite players at the top end, it undoes a lot of the good work that gets done in the build-up, unless everything happens to crest at the same time, which I guess is the ideal plan for the Eels. But yeah, it just feels like that's being too narrow in scope. You ideally would be looking at it with multiple prongs. And
and so John, the schooner of reality, it goes to the Parramatta club, but not in a way where there's any sort of anger or ridicule or anything like that whatsoever. This is the ideal time to change our ethos. And when I say the ideal time, because we have high value players that are there. We've got at full strength a competitive team. We've got the juniors that are coming through. Let's take it deliberately with targeted elite level recruitment to that next level. Let's not hold back anymore. Let's pull the trigger, Parramatta. Let's pull the trigger and go, you know what? We have genuine ambitions for next year. We don't want to wait another year. It's time. It's time now. It's time to give the players what they need around them. It's time to give the fans what they deserve. We're going to have to spend a bit more money on individuals than we planned, and maybe it'll cost a little bit in other recruitment areas, but this can set up to make change and make quick change if we get the right recruits.
Speaking of the right recruits, because the name that came out today, which is very much antithetical to what we're talking about, Craig, and I know that squad building means you get big, the high priority players and then the fillers, but Eels linked to a Cowboy, a team that they're playing this week, Harrison Edwards, I think 25, 26-year-old back rower. Talked about as an in-season transfer, which is the upside, but I find myself concerned that this is sort of, like I said, antithetical to what we're talking about. And while he would help in the short term, and I don't think he's necessarily a bad signing, and that's an important thing to clarify here. I don't think it's a bad signing. I'm not sure if it's a good signing, Craig, because it's more mid-cap, mid-roster, for lack of a better word, bloat, where you got a guy that is a first grader, fringe first grader, maybe a slightly above average first grader. But we've got plenty of those right now. We've got a lot of young kids that are going to be projected to be that as a floor and higher. The injury toll is already so bad that I don't know if Harrison Edwards is going to turn the season around. Do you think he's a piece for the future that helps us not just in 26, but in 27 and beyond? Or is it the sort of player we should be targeting, or should we just cut our losses on this year in that regard and just say, well, Harrison Edwards isn't really going to move the needle for us in 27 and 28, so why not play whether it's, I understand there's different positions being spoken about here, but whether it's Tiankan Brown or Tyrese Lakini or, towards the later end of the seasons, maybe Funai Utah, is is Edwards the sort of player you should be recruiting, or we should be recruiting right now?
Let me put this into the category of perception. I don't. I'm not going to comment on the recruitment as such, because in the totality at the end of the season, with signings that are made, that may well fit in perfectly with the balance of the roster, depending on players that leave and what have you. However, for perception and for the fans right now, it's, and this is with respect to Harrison as well, because this isn't a comment about him.
He's not a bad player, Craig. I'm not saying it's a trash signing.
And that's why I wanted to emphasise that in the totality of the recruitment, by the time it's finished at the end of the year, it might be a great signing. It might be an ideal signing. But what I'm saying is the perception now for that to be, oh, look, this is a player that's now being linked with the Eels. The fans don't want to hear that. They want to hear about elite players that are being linked to the Eels. Now, the Eels can't come out and say, oh, we're negotiating with Pat Carrigan, or we've been sitting down with Herbie Farnworth. They can't come out and say those sorts of things. That's what the fans want to hear. And that sort of thing would satisfy the fans. But the fans have to realise that that's not going to be possible to get that sort of messaging out from the club. And the one thing that the club has done very well is you normally don't find out who they've been negotiating with until they're virtually signed and it's done. But again, in this instance, John, we could talk about the signing and what the player might bring, but the perception is it's not going to be the game-changing signature that fans are looking for.
No,
and that's just...
And of course, the details of the contract would be critical. Is it just for the remainder of a year? Is it this year plus next? Is it this year plus one, like an option somewhere in the club's favour? We don't know that. It was just thrown out today in an article that the Eels are looking at Harrison Edwards. But one of the big points for mine, Craig, was if you're going to do this top 30 approach where you keep one or two slots open, and again, this year's a bit of a weird one because Ryan Madison has got his whole situation. Zach Lomax left the Eels completely in the lurch with the inability to replace him properly this season. So there are, I will not say fully mitigating circumstances, but there is a little bit more context. But if you're going to do the top 28 through the year approach, you can't afford to mortgage your future to patch up the current season. And that is my concern with something like Harrison Edwards, where if we go out and sign him, if it's this year plus another 2 years, again, he could still be a consistent contributor for the Eels, but he's, again, with what we have coming through and even what we have at the club right now, we don't need more solid workers. You need to go find the elite additions. And then the problem is that any mid-tier signing you make, in addition to that, compromises your ability to get the extra potential elite or excellent signing to elevate that squad. Because that's, even though we have salary cap space, it starts disappearing really quickly when you start throwing in $200,000, $300,000, like $1,000 players. That cap space quickly evaporates. So, look, we have to wait and see. It's not a done deal, but the tone of the article made it sound like it was pretty close to happening. As you mentioned, Craig, the Eels don't really leak their negotiations. So when you see something in the paper, it's pretty noteworthy. Like the Jaden Sewer stuff went from Eels, close to signing Jaden Sewer to, well, every journo saying it's a done deal. Like in the space of 48 hours, it was just like, it's done. You got to wait for the Eels to announce it. So seeing Harrison Edwards' name in the papers makes me think that it's probably a fair bit of close to getting over the line at this point.
Yeah, it's I think I know what the response to the fans is going to be, and the only thing that I would hope, John, is that Harrison was in our plans before all of this happened, because again, if he's signing beyond this year, I'd need to see a totality of recruitment completed by the end of the year to make an assessment as to whether it was the correct rein that was pulled in going down this path. Because given that he's pretty much a fringe first grader at the moment, I'm struggling to see what the difference is between naming him and naming some of the younger ones.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, and again, it's not this. I'm trying to be disrespectful to Harrison Edwards. He's shown his time in the Cowboys. He can be a pretty handy first grader, but I just don't think he helps us in the big picture the way we need to be helped. Not to say he couldn't help us. So, yeah, we have to wait and see how it plays out. But I can understand why fans might not be super keen about that signing. And a fiending, like you said, Craig, for something a bit more meaty. So
and can I also say, if he does sign, then the job of fans then is to get behind him. It's
don't crucify him before he's put on the blue and gold jersey.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is really important. Like players don't select themselves in first grade, and the coach makes those decisions about who he thinks is going to be able to do the best job. And I always see, like, when fans at the extreme end rip into players and get like quite personal about players and abuse them for performances and what have you. There's no player that goes out there that is intentionally trying to maybe like shank a game. It's like if a performance isn't up to standard, it's because a bloke simply, it just didn't happen for them on a day. There might be times where you go, look, the team didn't turn up and players weren't on their game and what have you. Well, that's part of human nature a little bit. But maybe you just don't want to have, if there's players who have that happen too often, you don't want them in your team. But it doesn't mean you have to abuse them. That's the coach's job, whether they're in the team or not. And you'd like to think the players, well, as I said, well, it's not even you like to think. Players don't achieve anything by not putting in. And I think much the same when we get a new arrival. If they're not someone that the club, that people want in the club, doesn't mean you rip into them or put them down or what have you. What does that achieve? All that does is puts a distance between the players and the supporter group. I think as supporters, we get behind everyone that pulls on the jersey. Doesn't mean we can't be critical of performances. Doesn't mean we can't be critical of club decisions. But the one thing I think we should never do as fans is get out there and rip into players.
Having seen some of the stuff that's, and this isn't Parramatta, it's adjacent Parramatta for our sister clubs, but some of the other fan bases, putting out death threats and whatnot, and that's where, like, not saying we go immediately to death threats, but that's what the spiral becomes. Abuse leads to elevated frustration and anger, and eventually it'll lead to an unhinged individual making death threats, and God knows if they'll ever follow through on it, and you hope that they don't. But that's why, calm heads prevailing is, in general, not to say you can't be passionate and upset about what Parramatta have and haven't done, but having the calm head does go a long way in these circumstances. But yeah, Harrison Edwards, potentially a Parramatta Eels recruit. Be interested to see how that plays out, Craig. But yeah, that's the I suppose the schooner of reality. And look, in chat we're seeing some suggestions. Someone people asking, can the Eels throw their hat into the ring for Dylan Lucas? That's far closer to the elite kind of player that we've been talking about. He's not quite a proven rep star yet, but he's knocking on the door. I saw Jack Bostock being thrown out there as another one. I think he's contracted at the end of next year, so he would be a November 1 candidate for negotiations. Bostock's a great young player coming off a pretty bad knee injury, made a triumphant return for the Dolphins. They've got 1 million backs in that back line. So you've got to feel something's got to give, whether it's Averillo, Bostock or Herbie. You've got to think one of them at least makes way there. But yeah, they're absolutely the sort of players that I would like to see the Eels target. I would also, it wouldn't hurt to get a more experienced star, someone in that, mid-ish 20s bracket that's been at rep level, done it, or won a premiership. But they're often the ones that are the hardest to get. So yeah, there are definitely a few things to consider there. But I think in terms of your schooner of reality, Craig, it's a pretty good yak there, and I think we should probably get going because we've been yapping for 45 minutes already. Good Lord.
Yeah. So let's jump into the injury ward because we have mentioned the impact of injury on the Eels, and it's still pretty sad reading, mate.
Yeah, unfortunately, look, it felt like it was an inevitability when we were talking about the breakdown of the game when the second intercept, the Ronald Volkman intercept, led to that try that had the player run past Will Penisini, and Will was just off his feet in a way that didn't look fatigued because he had the head injury assessment. He looked just shot to pieces, and unfortunately, he's been slapped with the dreaded TBC, Craig. It's osteitis pubis, which is a really nasty inflammation of the somewhere in the groin and pelvis there. And in my layman's WebMD sort of research, it can be anything from a couple of weeks to a lot of months. And the way things have been for the Parramatta Eels, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's going to be a lot of months in terms of the recovery, but we have to wait and see what the scans will do. I dare say that the inflammation's compromising their ability to get proper imaging, and they'll have to wait for it to go down just a bit to get the full scope of the potential damage there. But it could be a bit of a timeout without Will, which is really unfortunate because prior to that injury, he'd strung together a couple of great games and was looking like he could have been one of the Eels to help dig us out of the hole. But unfortunately, he's as I put in the team list post, Craig, he's another body on the pile, that ceaseless, ever-growing pile of injured Eels. And joining him is Ryley Smith, and everyone that watched the game knew that Ryley was in a bad way, was in absolute agony as he exacerbated that sternum injury early in the contest. I think it was about 8-9 minutes in. He has been confirmed the sternum injury. I would say it's pretty optimistic on the return date here, Craig. It is scheduled round 11 to 12. What is there is a round 12 bye for the Parramatta Eels, so it's really a round 13 return minimum, I would say. But even then, he did not look in a good way. Sternum injuries linger real nasty as well. So if he's exacerbated the injury to the degree that it looked like against the Warriors, I could see him sitting out even more weeks than just the round 13 return date. Beyond that, it's a slew of Eels set to return in round 13. Lincoln Fletcher, obviously a younger Eel amidst all those other injured Eels there, is still scheduled for a round 12 return, but he's probably going to project to a Jersey Flegg return and then maybe build his way into the New South Wales Cup later in the year. But beyond that, we've got Isaiah Yongi with his syndesmosis injury, Kitione Katonga with his got a some action out the back there. With an MCL injury, the medial collateral ligament there, then you got Sam Tuivasa with his shoulder injury. I was hopeful for a potential return this week, Craig, but the fact that he hasn't returned this week means you could probably pencil him in for a round 13 return proper, given that there is a bye after the Melbourne Storm game in Brisbane. So, slew of Eels set to return in round 13, but it's still pretty bad reading on the injury report, mate.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's and what we also haven't had listed there is
Jake Tungor,
a couple of injuries, out of reserve grade. So Tungor's out, and he's a top 30 player, so he should be on that list. And then you also have Manny Luke, who is the one of the two dummy halves in that grade, and he's also, I think he's got a knee injury.
Yeah, and Tungor for the second time this season took a wicked high shot. First time knocked him out with a concussion for quite a few weeks, and then this time, I'm not sure if there's a concussion or maybe a broken jaw in the mix there, Craig. It wasn't good. So real bad luck there for poor Jake. But like you said, probably should be part of the prop injury report there, but from what we saw on the weekend, it looks like he could be out for a while. Yep.
Now we might quickly
and
run
again, clarity for everyone that's joined a little bit later and missed my leading comments. Jonah Pezzett, there's no nefarious things here. It's a one-game suspension for a hip drop tackle in reserve grade. Credit to AJ, who was in chat earlier, by the way, who tipped me off to that. So we don't get those charge reports publicly in terms of the fans, but we've got a couple of guys in AJ and Chris who are outstanding resources for Parramatta fans in the chat here to get that extra bit of information. So thank you, fellas.
Yeah, much appreciated. John, can you very quickly go through the Eels teams for this week.
Yeah, so we start at fullback. It's Joash Papali continuing to deputise for the injured Iongi. On the wings, Brian Kelly and Josh Addo-Carr. We mentioned that Will's out for a TBC. He's got no due return date just yet. So Jordan Samrani, fresh off his own long-term stint in the rehab centres at Kellyville. He made a triumphant return in reserve grade. Craig was excellent against the Warriors, and he slots right in at right centre there. Sean Russell, tough last few weeks for the Rusty, but he holds his spot maybe by way of injury more than anything else, injuries elsewhere than anything else. But he's one of a few Eels that's probably a bit lucky this week, Craig, that the axe wasn't swung because of injuries, and hopefully he and alongside the other players can use that grace to bounce back. We go to the halves now, where Ronald Volkman partners Mitchell Moses, Luca Moretti, Talon De Silva, and Junior Barlaw starting front rowers. No surprises that Talon gets elevated to starting dummy half. There wasn't really another option, and Talon's having a pretty reasonable season actually. So hopefully this can be the making of Talon as he gets a chance to play long minutes, maybe 80 minutes, because I'm not sure who plays dummy half after Talon De Silva in this team. On the edges, Kelma Tuolangi, like Sean Russell, probably a bit lucky to be in the team this week. He's on the right edge, Jack Williams on the left, Jack DeBellin at lock forward. On the bench, it's Dylan Walker, Saxon Pryke. Tony Mattielli recalled after his 200-metre two-try effort at reserve grade on the weekend. Charlie Geimer, Arpa Twaddle, and Tianka Brown extend the roster. Josiah Funarayuta, Araz Namva, and Lorenzo Talataina. The Eels play on the Friday night primetime slot, Craig, and they've got Cup on the following afternoon back in Kellyville. They're taking on the Bears. So it's going to be interesting to see who goes up to North Queensland and who's getting the red eye back to play football at Kellyville potentially.
Yeah, it's and I guess they've got the time, haven't they? Because they'll probably come back. I would say they come back in the early morning.
Yeah, 8 o'clock game Friday, 4 o'clock game on Saturday. So if they red-eyed, even if they're red-eyed, honestly, they could catch a morning flight and still be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's probably most likely to be the way that it goes. We'll do our best to cover those games from Kellyville on Saturday. Actually, I'm looking forward to going and watching the games at Kellyville this Saturday. It's we've got the junior reps have now wrapped up, and we'll get to that very shortly. But it might mean that we can get a little bit more coverage of the New South Wales Cup and Jersey Flag.
Yeah, we've tried to cover them, but they have fallen between the cracks here and there amidst clashing schedules. Yeah.
It was quite tough we did our best. We pretty much managed to cover the Jersey Flag, the New South Wales Cup, and the Tarsha Gale Grand Final on Saturday before launching into responsibilities at Parramatta Leagues Club and then getting to the NRL game. It was an absolutely crazy Saturday. But John, can you now take us through the New South Wales Cup team?
Yeah, and this can hopefully answer Michael's question in chat of who is Jordan Hill, because he is part of the Cup team today, or today for Saturday. Brad Avery at fullback. Molly Alamadine's being called back up into Reggie's on the back of all those injuries and promotions across the two senior grades there. He's on one wing, opposite of Jordan Hill. Araz Nanva and Richard Penisini in the centres. At 5'8", it's Lorenzo Talataina. He'll partner Arpa Twaddle right now, although that's probably subject to change depending on what happens in Townsville, Craig. If Arpa gets playing time out of necessity, which was what happened against the Tigers for him, then he probably doesn't back up. In the front row, it's Tianka Brown, Cruz Nathalie Schmidt, and Zach Visconti. Josiah Funarayuta, Trace Beattie, and Tyrese Lakini are on the edges. Of interest, Funarayuta and Beattie have swapped jersey numbers this week, so that's always annoying when I'm doing the team sheets, and they just, why can't you be 11 and 12 again? Why do you have to be 12 and 11? But yeah, they swapped jersey numbers. Jack Hudson, Chris Petrus.
I think you've got to do a little bit of extra work, John.
Look, it's the whole grand sum of Control X for one, and then Control V, and then Control X the other, Control V. But it's just the extra clicks, mate. It adds up. First world problems there on Team West Tuesday, obviously. But then to the bench, it's Jack Hudson, Chris Petrus, Ryder Talangi, and then Max Tupu. Eels play this one out of the Centre of Excellence, 4 o'clock PM, up against the, I think it's second place North Sydney Bears. They're having a good season. And this will be a double header at Kellyville as part of the Flag and Cup combining there, which is going to be nice and fun. But yeah, question in chat.
Bears still feed a team for Roosters?
They presently are. AJ's in chat. I'm pretty certain he can confirm for us, but I think right now they are. Let me just look at who's on the roster for them. Are they? I don't see any. No, the Roosters have their own team now. They do. So no, they're split. There's been a brand split.
Yeah, but I think they might have had a year where they had both their own team and the Bears team.
Is it a secondary feeder or a tertiary feeder, AJ? Because obviously you've got your own team in the competition now, but was there a brand split ahead of the Bears returning? Not feeder anymore. We stopped in 2023, so they're standalone, obviously preparing to facilitate the Perth major branch of the Bears coming in. So, all right, that is a nice clear up. Thank you, AJ. But yeah, Eels taking on the Bears here. Bears in second place despite no affiliation, so they're doing all right. What's going on there? They've had 2 buys, which helps. So that is lifting them up the ladder. But they are 5 wins, 2 losses in spite of those 2 buys. So they're doing all right.
There's no one in their lineup that's familiar with getting time in another club at the moment.
Philip Makatola's been around Reggie's forever. That's one there, but he's not like a prominent first grader. Jaden Yates, former Eel, or former Eels prospect. Matt Stimpson. Nathaniel Roach, another former Eel there. Matt Komalafi's on the extended bench there. So there's a couple of former Eels there, but no.
I think they've still got links with the Hills Bulls.
Yeah, no prominent.
As a feeder.
The impressive effort from the team then. There's no prominent stars there. They're just punching above their weight. So I don't know if they're missing players this week that would have otherwise been there, but yeah, that's a pretty impressive effort based on the talent available.
Well, you can imagine if they finish the season as premiers with the Perth Bears coming in next season, that's a nice little fillip for the new team coming in. And I guess the players that are there might be hoping that they get some level of contract
showcasing
with the Bears.
Potential higher tier of contract, exactly.
Yep. And now the flag team, John.
Yeah, go to the flag now, and it was always lately posted, which means I've got to hold a placeholder list in the team post for an hour or so. But unsurprisingly, changes in flag because of changes at the NRL and Cup level. Cam Bamblett, who's done a great job at 5'8" from the last 2 weeks, kicks back out to what I would say is probably his preferred role, fullback, Craig. He's in the 1 this week. Joshua Mar Nelson has been recalled on 1 wing, opposite of Drizzle Taylor on the other. Corey Lee kicks in from fullback to centre, while Nathan Howard, a bit like Corey Lee, a very versatile backline player, will jump up from SG ball to flag this week. So well done to Nathan Howard there. Awani Louis back, and he's going to partner Cade Muljali in the halves. Bo Lucian, Lachlan Koinakis, and Geordie Miller are your front rowers. Sterling Farmui, Callum McMenemy, and Jackson Coyner your back rowers. So it's an unchanged 8-13 there. Had a great day out against the Warriors. Then on the bench, Wesley Tongamoa, Stephen Nunn, Max Fumiano Popo. Good to have Max Popo back there. And Marcus Ofanoa. Expand the roster, Billy Fainene and Mason Ong. So a couple of SG ball players there in the extended roster. Eels kick off here, 2 o'clock at James Hardy, Craig. They're taking on the Fiji or Kaiviti Silktails, who I think they're not at the bottom of the ladder this year. I think they've actually done a pretty reasonable job. Let me just double check this before I start spreading potentially inaccurate rugby league propaganda. They are above Manly. They've got the 1 win and Manly got no win. So, it's not nothing. So they're coming here, and the Eels will play them as part of that doubleheader out at Kellyville.
Okay, John, we always do this anyway after Team List Tuesday, which is any final thoughts you want to share about the weekend result in the NRL?
I took a spa day, I suppose, away from football for most of the day on Sunday. There was a lot of, I wouldn't say vitriol, Craig, but there was a lot of very passionate fans that were upset about how it went. I sort of went away from that, and I went and looked at the neutral stuff. It was really interesting to see what the Warriors fans on the internet, on Reddit, and the more neutral forums were saying about the game and how they were reacting to Parramatta's response, as opposed to the Parramatta fans like us who are all, they're eyeballs deep in all the issues that they're going on in the club, whether it's injuries or recruitment or coaching or errors, all the things that we are all arcing up about. In this case, it was just interesting to see the Warriors felt like the Eels had them on the ropes. 60 minutes in, and then there's more than a few of them that said, we got the benefit of the calls, and that helped us get over the hump, and obviously we have a better roster, we're able to run away with it. So it was just interesting to see that Warriors fans felt like the Eels really slugged it to them, even for all the errors, which I suppose is what sort of prayed true to what we were talking about, but it was never going to be a game you could win at the error rate. So That was the one that really annoyed me, was the error rate, Craig. And I know that it's a toxic combination of injuries and therefore inexperience being brought into the team, and you've had deeply fractured combinations. There's no consistency across the park, no players that are used to playing with each other week in, week out, minute in, minute out across the course of a game. And that all adds up. But at the end of the day, I think there was still some fundamental and elementary stuff that it's just been bubbling away for the Eels the last few weeks, despite all their guts. And if they want to not even about making a push to the finals, but if they want to just be able to compete against these mid-tier teams, of which there are plenty this year. And if anything, the round that was spat out some crazy results that solidified the idea that anyone can beat anyone, and there maybe aren't that many genuine contenders right now, given how seesawy the games were. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, just we need to find a way to apply some polish, even amidst all the wounds and bandages and the general issues we're having, whether it's that or some bad luck of the officials. We just need to tidy up the errors, and that goes a long way towards getting us back in competitive areas on a weekly basis.
Yeah, John, the amazing thing was that at 18-14, the entire match to that point, Parramatta had looked like they were outgunned, but had remained in the contest, and it was 3 tries apiece at 18-14. The Warriors were ahead via, I think, one extra conversion and a penalty goal, I think, from recollection. And the Eels had a little bit of momentum at that point in the second half, which has probably led to those comments from Warriors supporters. And then we had 3 significant errors. There was Kelma dropping the ball.
Saxon and Kelma, I think, were the rough sequencing, unless there was something else I missed.
Yeah, but I think it might have been Saxon immediately prior to the Warriors scoring, and then there was the 2 intercepts. And what do you know? They were the 3 tries that were the difference between the team. And it's unfortunate that I think we lost a little bit of patience with those intercepts, because they're obviously trying to conjure something out of nothing, because in both situations, like with the Moses one, we were deep inside our own quarter when that was thrown. And for the Tungle one, I think maybe it was the last tackle from memory, but there was certainly an urgency trying to get the ball out to the wing in attack, and players in between.
Volkman actually done the work to put himself in a position for the attacking kick. He'd baited Watsins Lesniak into the front line. He just needed to lace it off the boot, and he chose to go for the cutout. And unfortunately, it didn't lead directly to the try. It took a couple tackles after, but yeah, just when you're chasing points, and it's the nature of the beast right now, where the games can feel so far away, even though it's not that hard to get back into the contest. But the Eels were desperate. They'd spent a lot of resources going toe-to-toe with the Warriors pack that were an excellent team on paper, an excellent team on the park, and then had the lion's share of the calls go their way, including some egregious calls. But in that moment, and it wasn't like the Titans game, Craig, where they took shortcuts the entire game. They took shortcuts because they knew that the petrol was running out, and they made bad decisions. Both Moses and Volkman, on top of other stuff, there was some bad defensive lapses. I think we pointed out Luca Moretti had a couple. Kelma's was pretty rough because the ruck was one short there as well, and he made a bad play as well at the end. But the Eels had run out of juice at that stage, and then obviously the Ronda Volkman getting done for the hit on the kicker, a number of ruck calls and no calls that didn't help there either, and then obviously Will Penisini was literally on one leg at the end of the game, Craig, and Ryley Smith played 8 minutes, so all those things added up. But I just want to see the Eels tighten up a bit, mate, because you look at those results that we saw on the weekend elsewhere in the code, and if the Eels just tighten up and they get to 75-80% completion rates relatively consistently, I'm not saying they're going to win a lot, but they'll be right thereabouts. If they can push the Warriors the way they did in the weekend, if they get another 5-10% percentile points of possession and completion rates in there, then they should be in the contest every week.
Yeah, and to that end, I think we have to simplify the sort of football that we're trying to play. It doesn't mean you don't play attacking football, but I think even more so this week, the Cowboys team is one that I'm almost think they're akin to the Titans, where
chaos,
the Titans
chaos ball. Yeah, exactly.
Chaos football, and that's what the Cowboys will do, and they'll concede points, and they'll also score them if you hand them the sort of possession that we've been.
Drinkwater,
teams.
Purdue did, and they'll thrive on those sort of opportunities. Got a question.
And if we attempt to play the same football as them, we're inviting them to win.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So we have to have a think about that. And that's us. That's us as armchair critics, and we're not the coaches who obviously have a career and lifetimes in football. But one of the things that we see is the Eels are struggling to execute when they get expansive. They're struggling to execute even with some of the basic plays anyway, but especially when they get expansive. And if you can apply that scoreboard pressure in this game, and if you can get more time in possession than your opponents, then you are a chance of picking up those set restart calls and the penalties and what have you. And our problem is, if we're competing at 70%, we're turning it over to opponents, we're setting ourselves up for the referees to have a say.
Yeah.
If we want to reduce, if we are seriously upset by some of the officiating performances, the only way to combat that is to control the ball better. So you don't give them an opportunity to impose themselves with calls that you think are a little bit more suspect. So to me, it has to be as simple as that.
So 2 questions, Craig. One from chat, one from me. From chat, from a few people. I think I saw Josh there, and was it Neil or Michael? Someone else was asking, or maybe maybe Neil there. Essentially, the gist of it was, what's the plan behind De Silva this week for dummy half? Which is a very fair question. Eels named De Silva to start. I think the projection is he's going to play, if not 80 minutes, big minutes. But knocking on wood, assuming nothing happens to him and there is a plan to rotate him, what is it? Walker, Geimer, Twiddle? Who is the emergency dummy half this week?
Oh, look, I've honestly got no idea, because their training yesterday was more skills based and a bit of a loosener, rather than anything that was opposed work or structured football. So I guess if we were doing the podcast tomorrow night, I might be able to throw that to you. Or then again, I might think, no, I better not say anything. So, but the answer is, I haven't got a clue. If I was to have a suspicion about it, I might suggest that it's going to be Charlie that jumps in there.
Because
he didn't do any training. He didn't do any training there in the preseason. There is no one in that lineup that was playing dummy half during the season, during the preseason. But there was a little bit of a whisper around that if there were issues at any time during games, that either Hopgood or Geimer would be considered.
And unfortunately, Jermaine's
to jump in.
So Charlie maybe is the emergency option. Yeah. Okay, so good answer
again,
there.
that's just I'm honestly clueless as to what they are likely to do.
I mean, in a true pinch, another thing they could do, and it wouldn't be ideal, but you could kick Volkman into dummy half, throw Geimer throw Dylan Walker into 5/8, and then let Moses be the dominant half, and let Walker, if it is Walker, be the opportunist at 5/8. My question, Craig, is more on a metagame level, and it came to me when I was thinking about the game in that little spa day that I had, or footy spa day, and there was a moment in the game at Eels and Warriors where there was a big clearing kick that found touch. Real throwback to the days where you used to slow the tempo down, suck it in, and get the scrum. And that's just been abandoned because it's a play the ball. It's too fast. But if you go back and watch that, both the teams were in no rush to get to the play of the ball. The players had to get back on side still. And it wasn't a full scrum where you get the 30-second shot clock and there's time to milk around that because the ref says time off and whatnot. But have teams overfought, and in particular teams that need to slow the tempo down because they're not as talented or as fit or as just skilled as some of the other teams, have teams overfought the value of just finding touch? And I understand that the back three are also better than they've ever been at fielding the ball, and there's a lot of vigilance for the 40-20s. But have teams overfought the value of slowing down the game and just getting that tempo back to suck in, even if it is only 20, 30 seconds for a play of the ball? Like, is it something the Eels should be exploring with Mitchell Moses? Because the game's so fast, Craig. And when we talk about those swings of possession against you, when it is going against you, the value of being able to buy yourself another 30 seconds to suck it in and set your defensive line, like, there is merit there. Should teams be looking at finding the sideline a little bit more, even if it is only a play of the ball?
That's an excellent question, John. And by the way, just on the last topic, I think the plan would probably be for De Silva to play 80 minutes, ideally. But I think that's you've maybe jumped the gun, or maybe not jumped the gun, but you're maybe ahead of your time in what coaches might be coming up with later in the season, because I don't think that would be the option that you would go to every time, because
no. Yeah.
There's obviously value for the attacking team to try to pin the opponent in the corner with a kick, or to catch them out in other ways. However, I would think if you're fatiguing, then I wouldn't see a problem with one of the halves, one of the kickers, deliberately kicking into touch.
Yeah, just tactically
maybe
slow
for
it
a
down.
30-metre gain to around the 20-metre line, something like that, and getting that start, because they have to wait till everyone gets back on side.
Yeah, I guess it's not the full scrum of rest that you used to get, but it's not an insignificant break. It is time to suck it in.
It is a break, as you said. It's a chance for the defence line to get set, for a few extra breaths in, and it's not a bad call, John. In fact, I think it's a sensational call. We should get you to record a quick video on that for the Facebook and Instagram.
The less of me on the internet, I think, is the better for the rest of the world. So we're already pushing.
Look, I think it's a really good call. But John, let's now get into the results from the other games over the weekend. So first of all, I thought it was an outstanding win by the New South Wales Cup team, winning 43-14 over the Warriors. And I think Tony Mattielli got a double.
Could have been a triple.
Game.
He was inches short of a triple. It was what preceded the field goal from Jonah Bezzett. He nearly scored. So he had an outstanding. When you talk about players responding to getting dropped, and I don't think when you talk about Tony getting dropped, I don't think it was a form dropping. It was more of a fit dropping with trying to get the four pack set up a certain way against the Warriors. And we talked about the interaction that maybe Ryles got it wrong there with Tony Mattielli, but he responded in the exact sort of way you want to see a player respond to getting dropped, whether it's on merit or on team fit. And he went back down the reserve grade, punched out nearly 200 metres, 7 tackle breaks, a couple of line breaks go off those 2 tries there, because of course you break the line and score the try in general consideration there. And yeah, he was excellent. Really, really good response from him. That was a season high watermark for him, maybe a career high watermark in reserve grade too, Craig. That was a huge effort from Tony, and it put him right back in selection frame. And lo and behold, he's almost certainly on the plane to Townsville come Thursday or Friday, whichever day they fly up, and it's deserved. He was outstanding. One of a number of players that put together excellent showings, because I'm sure you're going to throw a few more at me.
Well, actually, I think there was from the forwards, Visconti still continuing to be
making every post
someone to keep an eye on.
Every post a winner right now. He's some of it is injury, but also his outstanding form has seen him win multiple starting berths now. I think he's pretty much averaging a try a game as it stands. He's found a way to be on the scorer sheet week in, week out. 13 carries, 138 metres. Had the line break of his try there. 3 tackle busts there. In terms of defensive work, 29 tackles made, 2 missed, so like right where you need him to be on both sides of the ball. He was outstanding in flag to start the year. He's earned this call-up regardless of the injuries. And from there, he's earned the call-up from the bench to the starting team. Like I said, making every post a winner. Beyond that, Tyrese Lakini, again, alongside Visconti, they've put together both about a month now of really quality football in reserve grade. I think both players putting their hand up to the coaching staff to say, hey, if you've got any opportunities at some point up in first grade, post round 11 where the handcuffs on selections get loosened up, we're here. Likewise, his numbers aren't as eye-popping as the other boys there, but it was good to see Josiah Finayuta have a nice game both statistically and on impact on the field there. He's been working towards some good form for a while here and has been edge forwards, sort of almost like a captive audience to what their halves are doing there. And the Eels have had a bit of flux in the halves in reserve grade because of guys coming up and down, and Lorenzo's playing 40 minutes here and then being taken out of the game as well. So there's a lot of shuffling of playmaker pieces right now, but he was good. But then the other player that really stood out, Craig, and no surprise he got the NRL recall, even though it took Will's injury too, but Jordan Samrani didn't miss a beat.
Oh, yeah.
Out for a couple of months. He came back and just dominated.
Yeah. There was a real, I was going to call it arrogance, but it was a confidence that he had every time the ball was in his hands. I'm going to
beat my guy, and we're going to go past the ad line or even more, and set up a couple of tries for
he
Devontae.
Looked like an NRL player playing.
Exactly. Yeah, he. I think Tony Mattielli was in the same class on the field that day, but yeah, that was exactly what you want to see from someone like Sam Rani. That I'm too good for this grade. Like,
yes,
you can't keep me down here. Yes. I'm too good, and he did that. Great combination with Devontae Vivella, who, as you may have noticed, was absent from the team sheet. So I'm not sure if AJ's got a suspension report on Devontae or if there's an injury at play there, Craig. That's really unfortunate because he's made a lot of his opportunities in this grade really start to stick. His finishing on some of those tries was ridiculous. He leaped himself into next week, or leapt himself in the next week with some brilliant finishes.
And the pace that he scored when Avery put him away down the right wing. But, John, we've mentioned injuries, and we haven't mentioned, because he wasn't in the list, and we didn't mention him as one of the injuries from New South Wales Cup, but Will Latu has unfortunately sustained an ACL, and that's obviously a season-ending injury. And it's horrible luck for Will because he's going to be in the full-time top 30 next year. And given that he had some injury problems last year, it's, I guess, 2 horrid years back to back. And he's a player that we just wanted to see on the field and be able to deliver what we know he can deliver. And we just wish him the best in his rehab journey because we want to see him back on the field.
Oh, failed HIA for Devontae, by the way, Craig, from AJ. Thank you, mate.
So that's it. Okay. And just very quickly, the Jersey flag, 30-24 victors, 5 tries apiece. Yeah. It was. There were elements that was like heart in the mouth, defending against the Warriors.
Yeah, in complete control to, oh my God, they're not going to steal this from us, are they? But that's the talent that's in that Warriors team, even considering their ladder position, which was in the midfield, like near the Eels. It wasn't anywhere bad. But yeah, Eels were in complete control early on, Craig. Tries to lead Towler, Miller, Coiner in the first half. Had him really in the command seat 24-8 at half time. And it took a Callum McMenemy try in the 64th minute to fend off the Warriors. But at the end of the day, it was the boot of Cabe Mujali that was the difference.
Yes. Those near length of the field tries from the Warriors were...
Joseph Ratcliffe, yeah, he's got some wheels.
Oh, that try that just came out of the blue in the 13th. No, was it his first or second?
His
try?
First one was the big kick return where he just side.
Yeah. Side through from. He's taken it on his own left wing.
Yeah,
and then headed cross country,
crescent arc to the right, and then just gone past everyone. Yeah, look, we've seen plenty of Ratcliffe through the juniors, through the mats and the ball in recent years. Real talent, and got to imagine he's one earmark for higher honours at the Warriors. But on this day, wasn't quite enough to get them home against the Eels. And Parramatta lift themselves to within one win of a share of the top of the ladder behind St. George, who I think are on top. St. George, Penrith. Who's third? It's them and then someone and us. The West Tigers. The West Tigers have but they've got 2 buys. Yeah,
exactly, John. So just the other thing now we need to talk about is the junior representative season wrapped up. And I'll just quickly mention in the other grades that the Bulldogs won the Lisa Fiola, and of course the Bulldogs were the team that beat us last week, and only just, and they won in a canter in the grand final. And then the Knights and the Roosters, who featured in both of the male grand finals. So congratulations to both clubs on making the grand final in both grades. And I think the Roosters might have been were the Roosters in the grand final in Lisa Fiola, or was it the Knights? Anyway,
the Roosters were in the Central Coast version, I think it is, in the finals in the Lisa Fiola.
So the Knights and the Roosters ended up splitting the boys' pathways games. Yeah. The Knights won the Mats, and the Roosters went back to back in the SG ball.
Chatting to AJ in the chat before, and I thought that the Knights hadn't did the rights. They were up 14 points near half time. I thought it was when I checked in, and the Roosters refused to go away. The Knights choked up a bit, and they did a great job coming home to get the back-to-back premierships.
Eerily familiar to last year, wasn't it, when we had the Roosters gone, and then they came back against us. But the big one, the one that counted, was the Tarsha Gale Cup with the Eels running out 20-6 winners over the Sharks. We should mention that Sharks team is a very, very good team, and were up 6-4 at half time, and the Eels just pressed the go button, and the Sharks couldn't go with them. This is a really, really good Eels team in the girls. The female pathways at the Eels are just working a treat at the moment. They're not just producing good teams, and they're well coached, which is a reason they're producing good teams as well. But the individual talent is something else. And we spoke about it at length in a in-depth grand final preview, John, the balance and the talent that's in that Tarsha Gale team. And I'm going to quote Coach Ryan Walker, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me quoting him with this. Some of the measure of the strength of the team is in the talent that was outside the 17 that didn't play. So, you know, those players that didn't get on the field, those players outside the 17, the team didn't skip a beat through the season when the side was rotated. And he could have had any number of players not play the game, and someone would have come in, and the team still would have got the job done. That's the strength of the team. But having said that, the performances in that grand final, we could literally highlight every player that was out there and wax lyrical about something that they did in that grand final. But that try that put the exclamation point on it by Freedom Crichton Rapati, it's going to feature in highlight reels.
Tegan Boyce had a phenomenal game for the Sharks, and she just got put in the dirt, like buried by Freedom Crichton Rapati with one of the most vicious, like completely legal, but one of the most vicious, don't argues, straight, like, you know, stiff arms fends that you're going to see. Incredible try. And it capped off. And
what we should mention is that Freedom, in going through the ruck, went right arm fend, left arm fend, right arm fend. Like switching ball carrying arms.
Just intuitive football. Yeah. Like that natural, some people struggle with it, but Freedom has that knack of being able to transition the ball possession to the right hand, the right time, to get the correct fend off. She had an awesome game. No surprise she took home the best on field, Craig. But like you said, plenty of other Eels that had great games. Zion Liga scored a double. Did a lot of outstanding ruck work alongside Freedom. Did it for Billy Vata, a player that's played both back row and centre. She was awesome carrying the ball in this game. I thought that off the bench, Ballymar Chong was at her scheming best. Scored a try, set up a lot of really damaging plays around the ruck. But yeah, you can go across the park and find plenty of players that had great impact in this game. And like you said,
and Kylie took out the season award.
Yes. So it was a little bit hard to pass on the broadcast because they cut off the volume for the
was that the seasonal final series?
AJ might know better than me because the lack of volume made it really hard for me to pick up the exact details. It was great, and we talk about the emotion rugby league, Craig. When Kylie went up to accept the initial as the captain to accept the initial celebration, the awarding the trophy, you could just see like she was, hand on her face, the tears were coming out because they'd done something special. It's a stellar squad, Craig, to win last year and go back this year in the manner in which they did, the talent that's across the park, the effort that the coaching staff have put in to make them such well-rounded footballers, both individually and on a composite as a team. Seeing that capstone moment for Kylie and just the watershed moment there was awesome, man. Like, some people don't think that tears belong in sports like that, but I love seeing it. That's just like, it's pure passion. It's the culmination of a lot of hard work between family, players, and coaches.
Yeah, with the commitments at the Leagues Club and also with me, you were able to watch the game live, but I had to watch it on delay.
Yes, because you had the New South Wales Cup game. Yeah.
Covering New South Wales Cup and then making the appearance at the Leagues Club. So I watched it the next morning and just sat there in awe. But one of the things that I really enjoyed was the joy on the players' faces pre-game and then running onto the field. And I'm talking about both teams here. If there's one thing that I've noticed a lot with the female game, it's the pure joy of playing.
Yeah.
You can see that football's in their blood. It's why a lot of us played when we were kids, or all of us played when we were kids, for the joy of playing the game. And when it comes to professional football in the NRL, I'm sure there reaches a point for a number of players where it's a job.
Yes.
That they and it becomes a grind, and sometimes that's when the players retire because any sort of joy goes out of it, or they don't look forward to going to training or a pre-season or whatever the case may be. But every one of those players started off just loving the game, and some continue to the point of retirement, and others, they fall out of love with the game. You can just see it in these girls' faces, and you see it pretty much in the NRLW as well. Even in the Origin game, you could see the joy in the faces when they ran onto the field in Origin. It was, it's great to see. So anyway, John, we've got our season review with Steve Georgalis that we're recording this week. So everyone, please stand by for that one to come out. We really appreciate Steve taking the time to talk to us about that, and also you'll have a bit of a chat with us about what's happening with the NRLW, and that should be available probably come Friday for the season review there.
Confirmation
and John,
from AJ, Craig. Confirmation from AJ that was player of the season for Collier. He had also clarified that the Roosters took home the player of the year for one of their boys, but he was suspended for the whole final series. So they won the title without arguably their best player. So fair play to the Roosters there. But yes, moving on, mate.
So let's get to your intermission, mate.
Yeah, look, got the Cowboys on the docket this week, which means all sorts of cowboy tunes and gunslinger music's up for grabs. We've done Morricone, he of the famous Spaghetti Western music in the past. I think we've done the Gambler. I can't remember because I was thinking about doing the Gambler in light of all our talk about the crossover between the Poker Hands and Recruitment. But I ended up settling on one that is from both a game series that I've played plenty of, and it's been a pretty reasonable adaptation to the small screen in TV format, 2 seasons of the Fallout series. And they've got plenty of like weird and wacky old songs that they've cobbled together for the soundtrack there. And this one is it The Man with the Big Iron? What's the, I think it is The Man with the Big Iron, which I think is fitting given that we were probably looking at some sort of a score-a-thon shootout with the Cowboys come Friday night.
To the town of our free rode a stranger one
So
fine
real
day.
old-timey tunes here, though. That's part of the Fallout charm.
The folks around him didn't have too much to say.
The old story in song form.
Yes, the ballad-like story, yeah.
The stranger there among them
Had a big iron on his hip.
big iron on his hip. It was early in the morning when he rode into the town.
The question
Should
is,
the Cowboys run something like this?
could you imagine? Yes, Jamie, New Vegas. Yes, that's where it debuted in the series. Yeah, this song.
He's an outlaw loose and running, came the whisper from each lip, and he's here to do some business with the
Big iron on his hip.
Big iron on his hip.
I wasn't sure you were a country music fan, John.
It's Fallout. The game has a very esoteric rate. It's got the I suppose the wasteland or desert radio, and it's got some weird earworms in there that old music from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they just work for the absurd setting that it is. And yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a huge country fan, but that doesn't mean there can't be good country songs.
I have to put my hand up and say nada to me for how many country songs I appreciate. So maybe some of the Beatles songs that went into a little bit of country. I didn't mind some of quite a few of the Eagles songs, which was country rock. Australia had its own country rock band in Stars. I really loved Stars. They were like my favourite, and some of their stuff was almost pure country, but yeah, it's generally not my cup of tea, although it is for a lot of people. NRL news, John, and one of the discussion points that came up on, I think it was 100% footy, was the debate about which new franchise is going to be better prepared. Will it be PNG or will it be Perth? Which one is likely to have the better roster when they start? Because PNG has started off with an elite level signing, the sort of thing that we're talking about. They've managed to secure Jerome Luai. It was right on the fringe of happening in our last podcast. It was, I think, confirmed that day itself that he had signed with PNG, and of course they've secured the record scoring try scoring winger in Johnson. Maybe not, you mightn't call him in Jerome Luai's elite level in terms of the salary that would be paid to him, but he's going to earn elite level money with the tax-free situation up there with PNG. In the meantime, you've got Perth, who have signed 15 players that, well, I'm not even sure that the Eels would say that they're our sort of level of player. I mean, I'd be disappointed with some of the, if this was the Eels recruitment for a season or in one go, if we had to start a roster from start, if these were the first 15, I'd be wondering who's going to make the impact. Much the same as we're concerned a little bit about our Eels, but I don't know. There's no one in that lineup with respect to the ones that are signed. Given that there's a couple of Eels in that group of signings that we're aware of, is that a team that's going to get victories at this stage? I think they're going to have to find an elite player or two to make an impact. And the PNG's gone the opposite way of getting two big stars to start off with, and then working from there. So, what do you think, John? Who's going the right way about?
We did a pretty good job discussing this in a recent podcast, in the philosophical contrast of top to bottom or bottom to top recruitment. And you're seeing in Perth very much bottom to top. They're trying to flesh out their roster, get as many capable first graders as possible. Some of that is limited buying power. It's a expansion franchise on the other side of Australia. It's not an easy sell. Perth's a wonderful place. You hear great things about Perth from plenty of people, but it's still going to be long flights relative to the NRL on a every other week basis as part of being a player there. So, yeah, and there's another layer here I'll talk about very shortly, but in terms of pure roster building, I don't think Perth has done a terrible job, but they have not found a pillar player to build around, and it's a real issue. And they needed more than one pillar player to build around, and instead they've just got a lot of either competent or below competent players, and that's going to put them in not a great spot early on. PNG, on the other hand, the Chiefs, very much top to bottom recruitment. Alex Johnson's whatever. Like, it's a nice story. He's obviously PNG player in terms of internationals, ethnicity. It's great to have that kind of player on board. I think that's a great sell for him. But the real bell of the ball there is absolutely Luai, who's going to be their cornerstone player, their recruitment sell to other players. Whether you think it's a great sell or not, it's going to be a reasonable sell. I look at the Tigers' success with and without Luai, and I wonder how much that's going to help PNG in that regard. Like again, when I question Jerome Luai, I am not saying he's a terrible player, Craig. He is clearly a good, very good player. Just being the guy is different in that regard, but it's still a great selling point. But yeah, the real, firstly, in terms of our setup, both teams have got some interesting choices. At Perth, you've got Mal Meninga at the head coach, which I never agreed with. There's issues there with their football department now. Things are threatening to unravel in some capacity there, so that there's a lot of stuff simmering away in Perth that they have to deal with. On the other side, PNG's taken some bold calls too. They've had issues with their executive level management. There's someone had to walk away at one point not too long ago. They brought in Michael Chamis, who is a left field choice for CEO, but that doesn't mean he can't be successful. And I think they made a pretty solid coaching appointment. So I would probably give the edge slightly to PNG in that regard, but there's still hurdles they've got to get through. But what this all boils down to is one franchise has been given a huge leg up from both the code, which is the NRL's prerogative, which they probably shouldn't do, and then the geopolitical stuff that surrounds Australia and PNG, and then the greater Pacifica that has led to all this tax-free stuff being spoken about. The Bears can't compete with that. Like, other NRL clubs are going to struggle to compete with that. So it's very hard. This is not an apples to apples comparison, is it, Craig? Because what we're seeing here is one team that got less prep time in the Bears. They had a faster turnaround than what PNG had, roughly, versus another franchise that had a little bit longer the prep, has probably gone about its prep slightly better, to be fair, but also has the almighty dollar. Like, at the end of the day, we talked about Keon Kolomatangi going to the Dragons, and what it was about the money. That's going to be PNG too. They're going to be able to get great players that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get, and for as long as 10 years seems to be the indication that the tax-free allowances will run at least 10 years. So it's
significant, absolutely significant. John, next on the agenda, the Storm, their run of losses now extends to 7.
Yeah, well, who do they play next week?
It's come on the back. It comes on the back of the reports for Craig Bellamy having a degenerative neurological condition. Undisclosed. So there's a whole range of possibilities that could be, but that's not for us to talk about. He's received, obviously, a lot of people have reached out to him as they should across the rugby league community. But I don't think this has any. I don't think what the Storm is going through isn't reflective of Bellamy and what he delivers as a coach, because his standards are high, and he's now probably into new territory for him as to
this is uncharted yeah.
Because the Storm would never have been in a situation where confidence would be eroded like it is right now. They are going through the sorts of errors that teams who struggle with any sort of consistent form will show from that lack of confidence from inconsistent form.
Yep.
And the more that you lack confidence, the more the errors are made.
Liquid
and
gold,
it just
baby.
compounds one thing into another.
Yep.
And I think Cameron Munster might have said on a podcast as well that this is new territory for him.
The 169, I think it is, like the Spine podcast they've got. And he was really struggling. Like mentally, this has been a real block for him, that he's never had to deal with anything like this in his career. Melbourne have always been successful. Queensland's always been successful. If they have a lost game, they don't back it up with a second loss, let alone 6 or 7. So yeah, this is it had him second guessing. And look, it's easy to sit there and laugh at it, saying like, bravo, this is the first time you've had to deal with real adversity, and this is how you're handling it. But that has been the Melbourne Storm, like the path. Like they didn't drop 2 games in a row, let alone 3, let alone 6 or 7. So this is something completely new to them. And yeah, it's not a surprise to hear that some of them are struggling with it mentally, because the confidence has evaporated. And you just need to look at the NRL like in the last week and see how much confidence is king. The West Tigers had 50 put on them. You had the crazy swings in the Broncos and Roosters game. You had the crazy swings in the Knights and Rabbitohs game, where in-game confidence is leading to these manic swings alongside the 6 against stuff. It's the Bulldogs are shot to pieces in confidence. So confidence, like I said, it's liquid gold, and it's one of those intangible things that no coaching staff can ever really control it. But when you have it, you need to harness it as much as possible, because the difference between a roster that is confident and not is the West Tigers being top 3, top 2, or getting 50 points put on them.
Yeah, the Dogs losing 5 out of their last 6, and the only win that they had was that extraordinary game against the Panthers, where the Panthers played such an un-Panthers-like performance. The errors that they made in that game were diabolical.
Yes.
Literally, and were indicative that if you make mistakes in a game,
it spirals quickly.
Any opposition can punish you. And they really they had moments like that against Manly as well, Penrith. Manly did well, but once again, Manly played a team that made errors.
Penrith
and
would refuse to put them away. And it was interesting because, as I texted you, Craig, in their 5-game stretch under Foreign now, this is their first loss. Their possession splits have all been positive, and heavily positive for the vast majority of them until this Penrith game, where they were at, I think, 56. Actually, if I can go find your text, my text to you, rather. Where was it? Oh, God. Hopefully this won't take too long. There we go. They had 62, 51, 55, and 54 possession splits from rounds, the 4 rounds that Foreign took over. And in that 51% game, that was the Dragons game, they eked out the win against the Red V. It wasn't a pretty win. They were very much on the ropes there. And then obviously against the Dolphins was 62%. I think Owls was 54%. And the week before, who'd they play? Whoever it was 55%. So they've had very hefty possession splits their way. And they've been able to parlay that into victories. In this case, against Penrith, they had the negative possession splits. They were the ones that were, if you watch the end of that game, Craig, they were off their feet. They didn't have a plan to get back into the contest. They were just trying to desperately cobble together whatever they could. And that's a team that's been crushing 4 games in a row, but on a game, like a game-by-game basis of fatigue, they were off their feet this one. And Manly aren't an unfit team. They're clearly not an unfit team. They've just won 4 in a row. But that's the product right now, and that's what the possession swings will do to you. But getting back to Melbourne, Craig, it is crazy what a lack of confidence can do. Once it creeps in, it's an insidious little thing, and it just impacts so many aspects of the game, because they're not even a shadow of the Melbourne that we know, Craig, that we've known for so long. Like their try was like a Wishart 11 minute, and then a far longer piece of brilliance. Otherwise, they're getting nearly blotted by the Dolphins.
Yeah, and what we should mention as well with the Storm, because it relates to a lot of criticism that have been thrown at the Eels. There's been criticism of the Eels saying, are they fit? This is the game nowadays. If you are handing over possession to your opponents, you are getting fatigued because of there just isn't those breaks. Now, John, you spoke earlier about could it be a tactic that the teams just kick out anyway and get that set restart from the opposition where they have to wait for all their players to get back on side to have that set restart? It's probably worth a thought because the game needs breaks. And what we've seen from the Storm, no one in their right mind would say a Melbourne Storm team isn't fit, because their pre-seasons are legendary for the work that Bellamy puts the team through. There has never, ever been a suggestion, and there wouldn't be this year, that the Storm are unfit. But they're having those moments in the games where they look out on their feet, because that's the modern game. Every team is having these moments. How many teams now are you putting a line through because they've had the 50 points put on them?
What are we at? 7 teams? What are we actually at right now? Let me go check this while we're yapping, because someone did put a post up on the NRL subreddit. It's absurd right now, because the West Tigers, one of the breakout darlings this year, and look, this is the first time they've had to deal with some injury adversity, both coming into the game and then during the game, and they got folded by the Sharks, Craig. It was, and the Sharks. The crazy part is that the Sharks didn't even play well for a good stretch of that game. It was like turnover for turnover in the first half, and then they're
not really a renowned attacking team. The Sharks either.
Where we keep yapping, and I'll go find it. Because, right now there is an absurd amount of teams. What do we got? I thought I had it. Where'd it go? It's ridiculous right now. How many teams? I thought I had it and I didn't.
The 50-point club.
Yeah, where is the post gone? Let's try. If anyone in chat's got it, feel free to embarrass me before I find it, because that's fair play at this stage. Oh, that's probably why it's not there.
I wonder if it's there under NRL 50-point club as a search. Here it is. It's on Zero Tackle.
Here we go. It is. Yeah, that was the post I was looking for. Yeah, so Phil saying Eels, Storm, 16. Titans, Tigers, Dragons. That's 5. Who's the 6th team?
Eels, Titans, Dolphins, Storm,
Dolphins, are in
Dragons,
there.
Tigers.
Yep.
So we're putting lines through contenders like potentially the Dolphins
and the Tigers, who
I think, and the Tigers who fancy their chances. Yeah. So it's really we're twice.
Yeah, we had the Gold Coast and Melbourne kindly put the half ton on us.
Boy, did we pick the wrong week to be playing Melbourne.
And the Gold Coast, apparently. But that was mostly our own issues.
Yeah.
But yes, Melbourne, with their round 1 streak on the line, apparently summoned up the strength they didn't otherwise have this year. But yeah,
I'm worried about Magic Round as their line in the sand.
That's my concern, is that if any team was going to play Melbourne back in the form, would be Parramatta. So, and Magic Round, Suncorp's their favourite stomping ground as well. So it lines up pretty badly in that regard. But maybe.
So, John, sorry. I was just going to jump ahead and just say, is there anything else that's breaking in the NRL at the moment?
There's some. Where is my? Because we had 2 run sheets today. There was a couple of interesting points of order in terms of news during Buller. committing to the Tigers long term, 4 years, north of $1 million was the line from Fox Sports journos, or Fox Sport adjacent journos, guys on the talk show panels there. A lot of money for the fullback, but again, you are what the market says you are. So he's part of that long-term committal to the Tigers alongside the May boys. Obviously, Loy is on the outer, and they lost the week that he went elsewhere, or has committed elsewhere, which sparked a lot of tongue-in-cheek comments on socials. But the Tigers do lock in another important piece of their roster for 4 years.
And anything else floating around besides that?
Yeah, look, good news and bad news, Craig. We'll start with the bad news. Daniel Saifidi, medical retirement, long story career in the NRL, played Origin, obviously an excellent Newcastle Knight and more recently a Dolphin. But like Tom Flegler, another Dolphin that picked up a nasty shoulder injury, who's slowly getting back to his best, thankfully. Serious shoulder injuries up there for Dolphins forwards. A bit odd that there's been a couple of them, but Saifidi's going to hang his boots up, mate. Unfortunate to see him bow out that way, but much rather any player in that sort of part of their career consider the long-term ramifications of playing through those kind of injuries and trying to rehabilitate to get hurt again potentially. So him bowing out that way, absolutely no shame there, mate. He's had a great career, and hopefully he can heal up and enjoy post-playing now. Beyond that, good news story, Craig. I don't know if AJ's still in chat, but one of the comeback players of the year sort of candidates, Cody Ramsey, got back onto the field for the Roosters on the weekend. He was very emotional about it, understandably. He was out of the game, or potentially out of the game, for a long time with the, what was it? It was like stomach ulcers or a ruptured stomach. There was something going on in his guts that was in a really dangerous point via contact that could rupture and set it off. And he had to fight a long, hard path to get back there. And he capped it off there with the win against the Broncos. So well done to Cody. Great result there. And then the other crazy thing was the only other team that's really challenging us for the crown of the most injured right now. And I've got to say, we've had some shit injuries, Craig, and we've had like really shit generic sports injuries, ACLs and all that kind of stuff, some syndesmosis, some NCLs, like, you know, covering the pretty average sports range of injuries, what you'd expect in a given season, even a bad season. But the Brisbane Broncos, they've had a pulmonary embolism, and now they've had a compartment syndrome. Dean Mariner got rushed to hospital late at night to deal with a breakout of compartment syndrome in his quadricep, I think. And while at its worst, it's a very serious issue that could, very worst case, this is extreme, could lead to amputation of the leg. It was caught, I think, pretty early on, and he's going to have to get that treated with, whether it requires surgery, I'm not sure. But, yeah. And
for people who aren't aware of what compartment syndrome is.
Yeah, so it's if you've watched House MD, it's not too dissimilar. It's not the same, but it's not too dissimilar to what happened to House. He had an infarction, which I think is slightly different, but similar mechanics, where there's essentially like dying tissue in the muscle, and compartment syndrome is usually hidden under like a cork or like some sort of embolism like that, and it can lead to like a complete loss of blood flow, and then what happens in necrosis of the tissue and whatnot. So, and that's what can lead to an eventual amputation in extreme cases. So, I got to imagine they caught it pretty early for Mariner. Ulcerative colitis, Peter. Thank you. That was what had Ramsey there. So we've got all of the doctors in chat today. Yeah, and now Neil confirmed he had surgery. So crazy stuff, though. The Broncos, they're doing their injuries in style. They're racking up some absolute gold medal injuries, and I think that thankfully all their crazy injuries have been caught early and have not been anything serious. But it's pretty crazy stuff.
Yep. So that just about wraps up the NRL news, John. Are we at the point now for if there's any questions from chat?
Yeah, let's field some questions from chat as we close in on the 2-hour mark. Been rambling away. Phil saying PVL ball causing these injuries have changed the rule. It is, look, people will say correlation, causation, and you can't equate the two things. That might be true, but geez, the layman's evidence is sort of pointing towards an uptick in these injuries alongside the rapid pace of the game. I know they want fatigue, and I know they want the ball to be in play, but we're just, is this Normandy? Is this a bridge too far, Craig? Like, what are we? It's crazy right now.
Well, there's a great point, great article that was put out by Ryley last week, and just in relation to, I'm just getting to the point, trying to find the point that she made in her post about those sorts of injuries, because this is how she's broken it down to inherent, avoidable, and systemic risks, related but not the same. All risks are not the same. Inherent risks in rugby league, collision, contact injuries, and physical fatigue are inseparable from the sport itself. Players knowingly accept those ordinary risks as part of participation. Avoidable risks, poor technique, foul play, inadequate recovery protocols, or preventable overload can sit in this category. These are risks that game rules and safeguards aim to reduce. Systemic risks, perhaps the least discussed category. These are risks arising not from individual error, but from how the game is designed or regulated. They can emerge through rule interactions, incentives, workload demands, pace of play, or cumulative fatigue. So I think at the very least, you're talking about PVL football introducing a lot more of the systemic.
Yes,
I mean,
the ones you don't want to be introducing, exactly, yeah.
Yes. So one, and what we've seen over the years is rules to introduce to cover the impact of other rules. And this is because things haven't been thought through. And when we've had rules continuing to be changed and adjusted, look at the 6 again rule for a start, when it started off. And you remember, John, I was furious that this rule was even considered before.
Yeah, and
before even one game was played with it.
And conceptually, I was okay with it.
Done.
But the way it was executed was completely contrary to what either of us would have been happy with, even if you'd been vehemently against it. So yes, and then there's all the cascading impacts of the other rules that get tweaked. We've seen all the restart rules get changed, so there's even more aggressive contests for possession. There is, when you change one thing just in a vacuum, it doesn't change one thing within the paradigm of rugby league with all the other rules and all the other interactions. But the 6 again is not, it hasn't just been the one thing, it's being changed multiple things. There's been the changing of where the 6 again happens, in terms of, now we've got the ball going dead doesn't constitute a seven tackle, 20-meter restart. Then there's some of the other things in terms of injuries, in terms of stoppages and play that have all been changed because of the 6 against. So it's not as simple as saying it did this, because that then becomes a branching thing of that keeps branching out of all the impacts.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was ready to pivot. So if you had something more to say, keep going.
No. If there's any more questions there from
I saw
chat.
Chris with a double barrel one. He had a nice comment saying or implying that there's going to be a 7th team joining the 50 club on Friday night. So he's all up for an Eels 50-point win on the Friday. I respect it, mate. He also we talked about at the start of the podcast, Craig. We also wanted to gauge our thoughts on the multicultural jersey, which if you want, you can go see on the Eels store, which you can get just by clicking through on paraeels.com. I won't link it in chat. You guys are adult enough to be able to handle that kind of search. But I was looking at it while we were talking about it, Craig, and it struck me as a sort of jersey that will look a lot cooler up close in person because of the subtleties of the patterns there, which you can you can see it in the promo material, but it doesn't do a great job of featuring. But it might be one of those jerseys that really pops in person.
Yeah, and I think that was much the same with the Anzac jersey too, because it was the subtlety and especially in the lower half of the jersey, and it was, you could see when you have the close up, you can see the wave pattern and all the intricacies of the jersey. I think it's a great jersey, and that subtlety means that from a distance, it's an Eels jersey. it has that appearance. When you get up close, you see all the subtlety of the jersey, so you know it's a special jersey. So yeah. Anything else there from chat?
A couple of people asking us about our thoughts on Victor Radley and him getting off. I don't know if you caught it, Craig. The moments of madness in the game that should have seen him sin bin and weren't. He got multiple warnings and got away with it. But then his live reaction, was it on the footy show he was on the weekend? There was a live reaction of the MRC report coming out, and they're like, "Oh, you haven't got any charges," and he was like genuinely surprised. So is this a case of and you know, if AJ's still in here, feel free to chime in, mate. But is what like it's not even Teflon at this point. Like, is it because he's just come off a long suspension? How? I don't.
Maybe
I don't
maybe
know.
they just decide, oh, let's give him a break. Let's give him a break.
Fair enough that Tony Staggs copped the ban he got. It just, I really struggle. It's crazy. But there was some crazy happenings in the back end of that Roosters and Broncos game. There was a shout out for you, Chris, from Scott Whitney, who really enjoyed your constructed and considered discussion about where the Eels are at. I imagine in regards to primarily that video you put out, but maybe also our chat, because that way I can steal some credit as well. But no, I think fans enjoying that, you know, you're not just flying off the handle and screaming and hollering, doing your best JC impression of what's wrong at Parramatta, but, you know, putting some measured thought into where we're at and what we need to do to move the needle, which again, we know that plenty of fans are hurting right now, Craig. There's been, a lot of people correspond with us, and especially you, and there are people that are very frustrated right now, and I understand. Like I said, I completely understand that not everyone's as patient as me. I've got an odd grounding in backgrounds. I support, the Eels here. I support the Mariners in baseball, who, are long-term losers like the Eels, unfortunately, in that regard of chasing premierships. And I happen to have one team here in the Seahawks who sort of fill the gap very nicely for me, Craig. But, yeah, people are hurting right now. So I think that you resonated with a lot of people there. And it's, as Scott said, hopefully the right people hear it. And, it's
I think it's been listened to, as I said, by around 30,000 people. And I'm fairly confident that it's been watched / listened to within the club. I'll tell you what I wanted to get across there, John, is that, and it's not just a matter of trying to articulate it. I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a lot that's gone right, but because not everything has gone right, that there's holes there. It's like everything. You have to look and see what do we need to change, and in terms of Eels.
So I was going to say, in terms of the mathematical formula that is all this stuff for recruitment and development, it turns out the coefficients of the factors that are your elite tier recruitment, those levers are pretty significant. Like the coefficient's higher, so it's why you can do so much right in the other areas, but at the end of the day, if you're not getting that big leverage elite player or two, it pulls you down.
And John, the thing is, and this is really what I want to express, is that the NRL now has become so much about the coin. Now, if it wasn't so much about the coin, you wouldn't have that massive advantage that's given to the Papua New Guinea.
Yeah,
that's all about what will attract players to the club. The NRL knows money is what it's all about, and if we want to secure elite players, in other words, draw them away from a place where they may be happy at the moment, what's going to draw them away? If they're on decent money now and they're in maybe a winning team and they enjoy where they are, you've got to give them something where they go, I've really got to take this opportunity.
Yeah.
And
of course, you're trying to sell. You're selling a vision as well. Yeah.
of course you're selling a vision, but come on, what sort of vision did the Dragons sell Keon Koloamatangi? Seriously,
Yeah.
If they've sold a vision beyond that contract, mate, every real estate agent would want to employ the Dragon staff to sell properties for them, because the job that they've done, if he's not gone there for the money, whatever they've done, they've worked friggin' magic, mate, because there is no bigger basket case, and they haven't even got a coach sorted for next year.
No, exactly.
And they were able to get drink water. So tell me, on what basis are they recruiting, other than that they're giving damn good deals to the players? It's pretty straightforward. This is what the NRL's about now. It's about the coin. And unless you stump up enough coin to get the player away from where they are right now and choose you in front of other competing clubs, you can't just go, look, come and have a tour of the place. Yeah, that's great. We've got an outstanding centre of excellence. So that maybe if you're in a situation where you're competing against a club that doesn't have the facilities that you have, and you're offering similar money, and you've got a similar sort of roster to another club that's pushing for that player, maybe you don't have to be the top offer. But I'll tell you what, you're going to have to be damn close to the top offer.
Yep.
So that's really the point that I wanted to make, and it wasn't a criticism of the club.
Well, it was a criticism. It wasn't an attack. There's a difference,
no,
right?
That's right. Yeah, good point, John. A criticism, but not an attack. And certainly, what we're talking about is a club ethos there. About to me, that's actually a corporate decision about the sort of coin that they're prepared to spend on elite players. So anyway, we'll see what happens. We're not going to say that we're influential in any way, but I think what's important is that the club will listen to supporters. The reason that they will listen to supporters, now I'm not talking about people going off the deep end, but they'll listen to supporters because supporters are the constant in the club. Players come and go, executives come and go, coaches come and go. The fans are the constant. The fans know the club. And so fan opinion has to be respected. And I believe that whilst the club is, I remember there's a saying that a coach had, and it might have been Wayne Bennett or someone, one of the well-known coaches, and he said the moment he starts listening to fans about team selections is the time that he'll end up sitting in the stand beside them. Yes. Or some words to that effect, right?
Classic
because
line,
if you paid attention to every fan opinion, you'd be number one, you'd have thousands of different opinions anyway. But when there's an overwhelming sense that something has to be done in terms of getting higher level talent, like the top of the top 30, having more players in that bracket. And you've even now got neutrals that are talking about it, the different NRL pundits that comment on the overall game that are pointing to Parramatta's roster and going, look, apart from Mitch Moses, who's your elite players?
Yeah, and again, there is a little bit of nuance there with the Madison situation and Lomax leaving us very much high and dry, but it doesn't just mean the last 12 months. There is years going back where there's been opportunities to take the gamble that we're talking about. I had to scroll back for this question. I didn't want to miss it because it's a fair question from Paul Craig. And this is something that actually me and you talk about in the context of being a development club and the combined arms approach that has to go alongside it. And Paul's got a concern, and it's a fair concern, saying, are our juniors as good as the powers that be think they are? It seems like we're putting all our eggs in one basket. There are no guarantees. He's absolutely right. There are no guarantees when it comes to football. And we always talk about talent, talent evaluation, it's an imprecise science. There are so many things that you can circle about a player that's going to say they're going to be a first grader or be a representative caliber player. But there's the mental makeup, there's the emotional makeup, there's just the luck aspect of it. There are a ton of things that go into a player that may or may not work out. And I will say, to preface whatever you're going to talk about, Craig, that we've had a lot of good juniors in recent years. Obviously, the 2023 SG Ball Premiership class has yielded quite a few first graders that are both here and elsewhere with the likes of Talangi and Sanders. But this current wave, both internally developed and then well scouted, feels like they could be a cut above. But again, there's no guarantees. So Paul's concern being all our eggs in one basket, it probably runs parallel to what we've been talking about, doesn't it? It's probably a similar prong of the argument we're talking about, where you can love these kids, in context, please. You can love the prospects, and you can rate them massively. And based on what we've seen, based on some of the conversations that we have in and around the traps, there are clearly some pretty high expectations on these kids. But again, no guarantees they work out, and do they have the fertile environment they need to, or they would ideally like to have to flourish as they hit the NRL. And that harkens back to what you're talking about going out and finding a couple of elite guys that change the culture, that change your ability to just win a game randomly. Like, that sounds like an absurd statement, but this is all interconnected. All the stuff we talk about, even though it's all random and esoteric at times, we talked about confidence being liquid gold, Craig. The ability to win a random football game because you've got, whether it's Mitchell Moses, whether it's Tony Staggs or Herbie Farnworth or whoever is your guy that you go out and get, if you can pull a game out of your ass, one game can become two games. Two games can become three. And suddenly you're a confident team. You're on a roll. The passes are sticking, the balls aren't being dropped, you're making the cover tackles. That's confidence in this game. So yeah, having those guys is a huge part of the puzzle. You can't just rely on the juniors. And being a development club first is important, but it's combined arms, Craig. You can't just be a development club. You need to go out and go get some important auxiliary pieces.
Let's put it into a Parramatta context. We could use examples of other teams in the NRL and young players that come in and join it. But let's, for simplification purposes and for the quotes coming from the mouths of the players concerned, let's use a Parramatta context. What did Brett Kenny say to us recently about when he first came into grade and very soon he was a premiership winner? And then he talked about post-1986 and what it was like playing in that Eels team. And he said he soon realised that there was a bloke named Michael Cronin who made rugby league that much easier for him in that team. The same team, that same team, when they were first coming through, the likes of Sterling, Kenny, Ella, Growth. Who else was in the team with Michael Cronin? Ray Price.
Yeah.
So you had two of the absolute greats and legends of the club and of rugby league as a whole were there and you had a captain in Stephen Edge as well, who was a premiership winner across two clubs, right? So a great leader that's there. And I guess as well, the Bear, Bob O'Reilly in the front row, the pack. So in the pack, you've got Steve Edge, Bob O'Reilly, Ray Price. Then in the back line, you've got Michael Cronin, and you've got all these talented players. And these talented players, these talented juniors that were there with the club, they became elite players in their own right fairly quickly with those players alongside them. And what you have to realise as well is that players like Steve Ella and Peter Sterling, they debuted, I think, in 78, 79, respectively. Eric Growth, I think, debuted in a similar year. So they weren't players that suddenly debuted in 1981. They were in the Eels system in the lower grades and getting a little bit of first grade experience. And then they blossomed in 1981 and they became elite players as well. this current group of Eels players, these younger ones coming through, what will help them to reach what we believe is their potential is having real quality. And I shouldn't say that the players there at the moment aren't quality, but I'm talking about elite in the game. Ones that they sit there and they look in the dressing sheds and go, oh, yeah, yep, I'm in the same team as these blokes. And there's been many a player who over the years have talked about when they've come into first grade and they're in a star team and they're sitting there in the dressing sheds and they're looking around at the stars that they're playing alongside and the confidence that it gives them that they're going into battle with those players. We need players like that in the first grade team at Parramatta. We've got players there who can make us competitive and do a really good job. But we're not going to have Junior for much longer. He's in the twilight of his career. And the thing is, we don't know how much longer Mitch Moses is going to be an elite player playing for Parramatta. If we waste his years, what a horrid result that would be. To have a player who is so well regarded in the halves and not be able to take advantage of it. We've got to push the button. If not just from the point of view of becoming a premiership force, but realising the potential of those younger players. It's not just the coaching that will do it. It's the players they play alongside. So I would say to you that if you, for example, let's say Perth came in and swooped and signed all of those Parramatta youngsters. Well, let's say they signed just about a team's worth of them and put them alongside the players that they've currently got there. How do you reckon they'd go?
Yeah, it's along the same discourse of throwing them in the first grade willy-nilly, exactly.
Yeah. So I appreciate that question because it feeds into what we've been talking about. That development of the younger players has to, who they play alongside is a big part of that. Any other questions, or at the 2.5 hour mark?
Yeah, I think we can start wrapping up. Yeah, for a podcast
we're almost covering someone like Marcus for a road trip from Canberra to Parramatta.
Give a bit of fodder, exactly. Although obviously it's an away game this week, but yes, if there's anyone on the road, it'll give you at least a bit of fuel to spend some of the trip listening to a couple of idiots yap about the Eels and the wider NRL. But yeah, on that note, I think we will wrap things up, guys. Chat, you've been awesome today. A lot of great questions, and obviously listen to us really get into the weeds about where Parramatta are at right now. And I really appreciate all the fantastic questions and interactions that you've given us today. It always helps the podcast. So, okay, we'll round up. Ronnie's got one question before we wrap up. Based on what you just said, Craig, what's your top 3 wish list?
In terms of players?
Yeah,
wish list.
Who sets us up?
Yep. Okay, this has got nothing to do with who's available. If I could go out there and recruit players at the moment, I'd go Pat Carrigan, Herbie Farnworth. Like if I just had to get a forward and a back, they'd be 2 of the players that I'd get.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the Eels are actually pretty set up in the spine if they have the other pieces excelling, like Moses, whoever ends up winning the spot alongside him, whether it's Lorenzo, Fletcher, Bamblett, someone else, whoever, Young at fullback and then the 2 dummy halves. I agree. Get a strike weapon in the back line and get a pillar in the front row. And yeah, that really sets you up.
And not just a pillar with Carrigan, but a leader.
Yeah, a guy that's won the premiership, been successful at State of Origin, and he's been burdened with leadership since a young age at Brisbane, in various capacities, and he hasn't shied away from it. So yeah, agreed. Makes sense. All right. Okay. So on that note, I hope that I know it was only a top 2, but Craig was on the ball right away, and I don't think we need a top 3 in that regard. So I hope that satisfies your question there, mate. And I think we can move to the thank yous, which I've just done, and then hand it over to you to take us away, big fella.
Well, it's been a long podcast, John, and thank you to everyone who's still stayed there. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and, of course, the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club. If anyone wants to jump on board with the most trusted, the website and social media pages that cover more of the Eels than anyone else, get on board with the Cumberland Throw. That's all I've got to say. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels, para proud.